What we're going to do first is create the pinky sort of colour for the violets. Now what I'm going to do is firstly dilute the pink. You can see that the pink's a really bright pink. It's magenta, which is a really bright pink. So to grey it down or tone it down, we just use a colour opposite on the colour wheel. And I'm just going to grab a little bit of Hooker's Green and just grey that colour down slightly. What you also want to do is make sure that you've got your ribbons close and handy so that you can see whether the type of colour that you're going to be mixing to, this is the main colour of all my ribbons, is going to be similar. So I'm just going to take that colour and paint it on a bit of paper just to see how it looks. That's just adding a little bit more water, and you can see that the more water you add, the paler the colour we have. And comparing that to my ribbons, it's a fairly good match. I don't know whether you can see that there. So I'm quite happy with that colouring. So I'll make up a little bit more of it. In order to grey down colours, you're sort of adding almost equal quantities of red and green, magenta and green together. Those colours are opposite on the colour wheel, which is why it works. Okay, so I've mixed up my colour. I'll just move those ribbons away. And I'm going to start painting in, or just lightly washing in, the main flowers. And all I'm doing is just filling in, blocking in where those colours are going to go. This is really easy, it's just dabbing the paint on to roughly fill in where everything's going, and all I'm doing is just adding more and more water to that paint to dilute it, to just make more of it. You don't have to worry about these not looking perfect because you're actually going to be embroidering them to look the way that you want them to, and all that we're doing at the moment is just purely placement. So I'm not too fussed about how they're shaping up at the moment. Leave the creamy coloured ones because you're going to put those in a different colouring. I'm just blocking in all of the pink ones. Sorry, I'm using the number 4 round brush. I just realised I didn't tell you which brush I was using. So this bit's pretty easy. Now you can see that I've just done a bit of a blob there. That's where you use your pad of paper to just place it on and blot it back. Now I'm just going to place the yellow ones, and I'm going to use that orangey colour. And just to tone it down, I'm going to add a tiny bit of blue so that it's not so orange. And remember, to make a lighter colour, you just need to add a bit more water. And hopefully you can see that some of these lines, you can work the watery paint into those lines to try and blur them out so that they're not so liney. Now for the leaves, because we're only blocking the leaves in, I'm going to take the chartreuse or the Australian yellow green, add a tiny bit of, that was a lot too much, we'll do that again. Take some of the chartreuse and then some of that orange, add a lot more water, and we're just going to brush that into the middle areas. You probably don't need to be as detailed like this for the colours, but I still like to add just a little bit more variety of colour onto the background. It just helps me see the whole picture. And we'll then make the rest of the leaf colour. Adding a bit of blue and the greens, both greens together. You can see that's a very strong colour, and I wanted a little bit more browny or olivey in colour, so I'm going to add tiny amounts of the magenta across to it so it's not so luminous and bright as well. Okay. Now what I'm actually going to do is flood the area here. It's okay that I've got the green, and it's alright if the green bleeds into the other colour. I'm actually going to wet my mop brush and just by adding a little bit of the water, you can see that I'm blending it out and it's softening as it goes. There you go, just so that you've got a good idea of which direction that leaf is going to face. I think they're really important details to add at this stage so that you're going to have the formation of the leaf pretty clear in your mind for when you're actually going to start the work. And we'll just do the other leaf as well. Okay. And we've just got one more leaf to do. I just want to lift off some of that colour. You can see how easy it is if you have made a mistake to remove the colour while it's still wet. Once it's dry, it's too bad. It's permanent, unless you want to wash the whole thing off again. Just finishing off that turn back so that you remember that that's there. Actually, we could probably block a little bit more of that off. And just shade a bit more behind it so that you remember that that's there. And that's probably it for this stage. We have to let that dry and then we can do all the rest of the washes in the background. So I'll actually speed the drying process up of that with a hairdryer.